let's move on to the next step. So first I'm going to grab that spaceship, that extra one that's there, and I'm going to delete that. And we don't need it anymore. What I want to do is I want to make it so I can hit this ring and pick it up. So I want it to spin, but I want it to do something when I hit the ring, right? So to do that, we're going to go ahead and open up our BP ring. And in here, we have this node we haven't used yet, event actor begin overlap. It's faded out right here, but it says event when this actor overlaps another actor. For example, a player walks into a trigger. For an event when objects have a blocking collision, for example, a player hitting a wall, see hit events. Note the components on both this and the other actor must have B generate overlap events on, true to generate overlap events. Well, what does that mean? Well, first I'm going to take this event begin actor overlap and bring this down. So get this out of the way for right now. And I'm actually going to go ahead and go to my event begin play and delete that print string. We don't want that. Let's move this up, get it out of the way, just so we have room to work with. So this says that we need to have generate overlap events on. All right, let's see what that is. So I'll select my ring mesh, and I'm going to search for generate overlap events. Great, it's already on by default. Great. Well, what is a collision? Well, a collision is a bubble that is basically around your object, where anything that crosses that bubble, it calculates it as a collision. So I go to my content drawer and I go to my meshes folder and SM simple ring, open that up. Here we have this big old ring. If I go to lit, change this to player collision, we can see that it changes. This is saying that any object that crosses into this box, it will handle some sort of interaction. Either it'll bounce off of it, or you can make it trigger an event. You can do a lot with that. Notice that this is not the same shape as the ring. It's the same general overall shape, but it's not the exact same shape. That is because with the collisions, the simpler the geometry, the better. When you're playing a game, you're not really controlling a spaceship. You're controlling a box, maybe a fairly complicated box, but you're still just moving a box around. Your controls affect that collision. You can put whatever you want inside of that box, and it'll show up as a spaceship or a fireball or an arrow or whatever. But your controls are really only ever moving that box. And if we have another object, and let's say that this one is a person. They often don't have a collision for the entire person there. They just put a cylinder around it, a little force field, a little bubble around it, and use that for the calculations. Now, we'll get more into collisions and how they work later, but just know that every object in your scene has a collision on it by default. If we go to our ring, our BP ring here in the scene, our collision is this hexagon-like shape that's around this ring. Well, I have my ring here. How do I make it actually do something when you hit it? Well, first thing I need to do is go to my BP ring, viewport, and select my ring mesh. And I need to search for collision. And here we have some collision presets. Right now it's set to block all dynamic. What does that mean? This means that this object blocks all actors by default. This means that you can't pass through it, you're gonna hit it. A wall would have a block all kind of thing. We actually want something a little more custom. We can set it to be no collision, where that means that there's no collision that happens. That's not what we want. Block all, overlap all, ignore all. And a bunch of these, some of them might work. I'm going to set this back to block all dynamic. And then I'm going to set it to custom. We have a bunch of different settings that we can use here to figure out how we want it to actually work. Well, let's see collision enable, what I have in here. We can say query collision enabled, query in physics. no query or no physics. What this is saying is a query means an event or something happened. Physics means you just hit it and nothing's going to happen. You would set up your walls to be physics only, but anything you want to collide with, you would set to be collision enabled. Object type, you're going to want to leave as world dynamic for this. And we want to set the collision responses. Well, here we have pawn. We want to set the overlap. If we run into something, we run into a pawn and our spaceship is a pawn. We want it to overlap. As in I can pass through it. It won't block me, but it won't ignore me. So we have that. Let's try that out and see what happens. Compile and save. Now I just have to hit the ring. Well, still didn't work. That's because my BP spaceship collision isn't set up right. So I'll go back to my BP spaceship, select my static mesh, and go in here and do collision. And I need to set up the collision preset for this. All right. So now I want to modify my BP spaceship so that way when I hit a ring, it will do something. In our blueprint spaceship with our static mesh selected, we have our collision enabled and we set the collision preset to custom. I want to set this to world dynamic overlap. So that way our BP ring is set to overlap with pawns, while our spaceship is able to overlap with world dynamic, which is what our ring is. Compile and save. And I went and made my ring bigger just to make it easier to hit for the purposes of testing. So you might want to do the same thing as well. So I have my ring nice and big, easy to hit. If it works, then I'll pass right through. And I did. Cool. So I was able to overlap. Now, how do we make it actually do something? Well, I'll go to my BP spaceship in my event graph, and I'll look for event actor begin overlap. By default, it might be the middle. I drag this up here to make it easier to see. So event actor begin overlap. When we overlap with an actor, let's go ahead and connect a new node for print. And I want to say in string, you hit something. So when we overlap, it's going to print you hit something. Compile and save and test. There we go. It says you hit something. It worked. But what did I hit? That's not that useful. How about we get the object's name? Event actor begin overlap has this output for other actor. This can get a reference to what you hit. So it'll get a reference to our ring when we hit it. So I'll get other actor. How will we get its name? Let's get object name. And let's print out that instead. So now it'll print the object's name. Compile and save. Press play. And it should say BP ring. BP ring C1. Well, why is that? Well, because BP ring is generic, it gives each object its own name. So I can create multiple rings and it'll tell me what the actual name is. All right, so we have a basic collision set up. We're able to hit something and we're able to spawn something when we hit, or we're able to print out its name when we hit it. Now we can actually make it so we can destroy the ring. Now what we want this to do is when we overlap with a blueprint, we want to check to see if what we're overlapping with is the spaceship. If it's not, we don't want to do anything, because what if something random hits the ring? We want it to only go away when we hit it with a spaceship. So what I'll do here is I'm going to grab this other actor pin, and I'm going to say, well, let's check to see if it is a BP underscore spaceship. And this says cast to BP spaceship. Now, what this is going to do, this is going to check to see if the object can be turned into a BP spaceship. We can then say, well, if it works, do something. If it doesn't, do something else. Well, if it works, I want to destroy. So I'll type in destroy actor. And I want it to destroy self. I want it the ring, because this is on the ring. I want to destroy the ring. I don't want to destroy the spaceship. Now, this could just as easily go the opposite, where we do it here instead of BP spaceship. But we want the spaceship to handle more logic, and we don't want this to get too complex. So by just having the BP ring handle it, it'll simply just destroy itself if it gets hit by the spaceship. All the other functionality, like adding points or playing a sound, we can have that do somewhere else. Maybe. So let's go ahead and compile and save and press play. Let's see what happens. I ran into the ring and it is destroyed. It's gone. Obviously, it's back when we restart the level, but you get the idea. And I am going to go ahead and actually go to my spaceship viewport. I'm going to grab my camera and I'm going to drag this back further. That way I can see a little bit more. There we go. And yeah, that's going to be it for this video. Next, we're going to get a little bit more into collisions and setting up other behaviors beyond printing, you hit something and destroying something.